Record. Okay, and we have gallery. Okay. All right. So I am very excited that you are here to share this opportunity with me because this is our attempt to broaden our reach to people. Usually we only have like 30 women at a time in small groups. And now that the pandemic has happened, we can't do those kinds of things where we sit and we talk about things that like this. So as you know, October is Domestic Violence Month. And on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner. And that's just crazy. And 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by their intimate partner. So this is a very difficult and serious issue. And I think that we need to raise awareness, which is what our organization is about, Ladies in Waiting International Wives, which means women in victory over emotional suffering. So, you start off waiting and trying to work through and trying to find out if anything is going to go right in the relationship. And then when it's over or whatever way it turns out, then you have to work towards your victory. So we would love to hear your story. We're going to get you started. This is beautiful Alicia Brown, the mother of a 9-year-old. I know you can't believe it, me either. And she is an aspiring actress, and she is also a licensed masseuse. And my shoulders could really use you right now. I really, really, I gotta come find you to get on these shoulders.
Well, I'm not
Woo!
far. I'm just
I
in
need the
Virginia.
deep tissue. I need the deep tissue going on. But anyway, we are so excited to have you here with us because being such a outstanding, dynamic woman, people would never believe that you yourself found yourself in some sort of situation like this. And just to throw this out here, a lot of women who go through this don't tell their story because they're concerned about being judged, the image of their families, the image of the people around them, their own image. It's so many things that keep them from telling their story, but hearing your story will help someone else move forward, learn, grow, and know that they can be free from this situation. So without
Yes.
further ado, we're going to start. I would like you to give me a little bit about your story,
Okay.
what you're comfortable sharing, and then we will talk about were there warning signs. So within that, let's start with that, with the warning
Okay.
signs.
And
Okay.
you can hear me, correct?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So about 5 years ago, I was in a physically and mentally abusive relationship with my son's father. Um, Out of those 3 years that me and him were together, only 2 of those years were physically and emotionally and mentally abusive. The first year we were together, it wasn't that way. It seemed to happen after I got pregnant. Um,
Mm,
Things started to take a way different turn. Um, he ended up being on drugs, and I believe drugs had a lot to do with why I was being abused.
mhm.
There were days where if he was sober, I was fine, but
Mhm.
I knew if he got high, what was gonna happen.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the brief intro of kind of what happened. Like I said, it was a while ago.
Okay.
So
Did you see like signs, like you're saying, when he would drink, you knew that it was gonna happen. When it the first time that it happened, um, what were your thoughts and why didn't you leave at that moment? Because that's always people's, question. Okay, so the first time they do it, why don't you leave then? So give me a
um,
briefing of what you think about that.
I think the first time it happened, I had said something, and I'm not exactly can't remember what I said,
Mm-hmm.
and he smacked me, and it
Mm.
was like, hold on, did this just happen? It was kind of
Yeah.
like a shock to my system that it had even happened. And being young, he was older than me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't I didn't know how to respond to it. I guess at that moment I didn't realize what was going on. I think maybe I just felt I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't leave at that moment because I was thinking maybe it was something that I said even though I know a man shouldn't put his hands on a woman, maybe I did say something that was a little off the wall and,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And being young, I guess, when a person, if you're super head over heels in love and a person says, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, you kind
Mm-hmm.
of think, because this has never happened to me before, okay, maybe he made a mistake
Yeah.
and it won't happen again. So that was a warning sign, but I also felt that it was a mistake and that he possibly wasn't going to do it again.
Okay.
My mother and my father were married, and then after they got divorced, I didn't really have someone that I could just go to because he was, in a different
Mm-hmm.
state, and go to him and explain to him what was going on. Our
Right.
relationship was kind of strained itself after the divorce. So I didn't know that that wasn't something that a woman should tolerate from a man. Even though I've never seen that happen with my own mother, it was not something that I felt like I could tell her because she already didn't like him. So I was like, if
Okay.
I tell her this, it's going to make it 10 times worse. So I'm just going to take the apology and hope it doesn't happen again.
Okay, and I can get with that. I can really understand that because a lot of times you do feel that it was a mistake. They didn't really mean it, or something I said escalated the situation. But as you know now, I don't care how mad you get, because what do you teach
No,
your own sons and daughters, right? You don't put your hands on somebody because you don't like what they said. You know what I mean?
right,
You walk away, you come back, and you use your words, and then we'll get to verbal next week. That's
right,
a whole nother
exactly.
story,
It is,
about
it
how
is.
that impacts us. But was there an escalation? So after
Um,
the initial hit and all of that died down and you were back to normal a little bit, did you see like an escalation or a difference in how he interacted with you?
Well, to kind of piggyback off the signs, I the signs that I should have noticed were that he was very possessive and controlling and manipulative. But once again, being young, 19 years old, never really being in a serious relationship. Now I'm
Yes.
pregnant. Now I'm trying
Yes.
to keep this family thing going.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was more like, oh, this is the way that he's showing he loves me, he cares. He's just overprotective and jealous.
Mm-hmm.
He's not
Mm-hmm.
possessive, he's not controlling, he just cares about me. So
Yes.
it was a slight escalation. It did start off mentally and emotionally. It was the
Mm-hmm.
words, nobody will ever want to be with, just a
Yeah,
lot
all
of
those
putting
things.
me down.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was prior to him being on drugs. So it was
Okay.
more like he talked down to me. And then when the drugs got added into the scenario, that's when it escalated to being physical. It was then it was all three. It was, I'm gonna make you feel like nothing, and I'm going to make your body feel like you're nothing.
Okay. So now you're going through this, you feel kind of stuck. You've invested time and effort into it. How many people kind of knew about it, but did not step in to help you? Or did you put up the brakes, like many women do, and say, mind your own business, I'm working this out or whatever? Did you welcome help, or were you kind of pushing it away?
Um, my best friends at the time, I had a female and a male best friend. And they did try to intervene and tell me,
Hmm.
I deserve better. One incident happened at my female best friend's house, and he tried to hit me, and she intervened and was like,
Hmm.
"Look, you're not gonna put your hands on her." And I did at that moment let her step in, but of course, later that night, I was like trying to make excuses for him of why it was like this. So I did have a few people that knew, um, but after they constantly gave me the speech of, I don't know why you just don't leave him alone. You deserve better. You don't have to deal with it. And they realized that I wasn't comprehending it or
Hmm.
taking their advice. It was more or less, they just allowed me to do what I felt like it was best, even though they didn't agree with it.
Right.
My
So
mother
that,
had no idea. She had
yeah,
no idea
yeah.
until my exit strategy happened.
Okay. So now I kind of want to jump in there when you said you made excuses for him, because that's a huge thing. We always are looking for the best in the person. We know the good part of them. And so a lot of times we will just excuse all of that other stuff
Right.
because we know when they're good, they're good. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, and people don't understand that. They don't understand the dynamic and how complex it is to extract yourself from a person. And when they say, oh, you should just leave, that's not good enough. We need to come up with some different ways to help women to see why they need to extract themselves, because it's not that simple. So, and
Right.
also, so it's very interesting that you said that your mother didn't know. We had a discussion last night, and one of the things we were talking about is knowing your friends and knowing your family. We have a way, because I know when I was in my situation, you could ask me a question, I would talk to you for 10 minutes and never give you that answer. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Talk
You would
around it.
never get the answer that you were looking for. And not only that, now you were answering my questions and I was helping you, but you
Right.
were never getting down to the heart of the matter in me. So that's another thing that I think that we need to learn how to do, is to help women allow you to ask those hard questions. How do you get them to open up to say, what it is that's really going on in their lives? So did you use any tools like counseling or therapy or anything like that during the time, or did that come after?
I didn't use any at the time. I didn't know how to tell someone what I was going through without making it worse for me if he found out. So a lot of what I went through on my own. And if you knew only because you saw a change in me personally. I may not, I was isolated, couldn't
Mm-hmm.
talk. He was always around. It was like I was on a very short leash and I was just not myself. If you knew
Yes.
me prior to the incident and then you knew me during it, you could tell, but I was not receptive for help. I didn't I was in love. So in my mind, he's gonna change. If I stick it out, he's gonna change. If I do this, it's gonna change. So I didn't necessarily ask for help. And then afterwards, I didn't either because I was still embarrassed. I still was ashamed of kind of what happened. I still hadn't forgave.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got to a point where I could stand in front of him and forgive him is when
Mm-hmm.
I started my own healing process.
Okay.
I've
That's
never talked to anyone about maybe like trying to help me kind of get through the scars or the PTSD that I sometimes seem to have.
mm-hmm.
I just have self coped
Yes.
and just tried to
Mm-hmm.
trust myself again to even trust someone else with it because people are very judgmental. They don't know how to ask questions without it being judgy or
Yes.
kind of shaming you.
Yes.
So I've tried to pretty much figure it out on my own. I mean I think I've done pretty good.
Yeah, I think you've done good, well too, but don't close the door on getting some help, because verbal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse is like shrapnel, in
Right,
war times. When it explodes and goes in your body, it goes all over the place. You don't even know where it is. And then that's the most inopportune time, something will come up and you will feel this, way, and you don't understand why you're feeling this way or what is holding you back or whatever. Those are things that need to be, almost like a surgeon going in there and extracting those pieces of slivers that are in there that you don't know
right,
are in there. So don't close the door on getting some therapy. I mean, I wasn't in like therapy forever, but whenever I got those walls, I would run into those walls, I would talk to a therapist, to kind of get to the heart of the matter, because there's a root issue going on there. And, I thought I had forgiven everything. I was in my situation for 15 years and then 4 years of separation. And so it was like 19 years of being in this dynamic. It didn't
right,
become physical, but it was on its way and I knew it, so I was thankfully able to get out before it became physical. But that mental and psychological abuse, that is a serious thing. And we do need to make sure we take care of ourselves, and that because you're raising a son and you want to always
right,
make sure that none of that residual stuff comes up ever.
right.
In his.
And I think a lot of people think that they would people who are in mental or in physically abusive relationships that may not be like the mental emotional from the partner, even though it all ties in.
Yes.
But you can have a partner that is just having a bad day and beats you, and then you can have a partner that is not only hitting you but also downgrading you, through verbiage. I
Yes.
think people who go through the physical don't leave or don't feel like they can go because they would almost rather be hit than deal with those lasting thoughts of words.
Yeah.
Because if you can say something to someone, you can get into an argument and say something very mean, and even though you were mad at the time you said it and you apologize, that person is going to remember what you said
Yes.
forever. There are
Yes.
things that I can still hear sometimes. I may
Mm-hmm.
hear it, get into an argument, and it may trigger something like, I've heard
Exactly.
this before.
Yes.
So I think a lot of women that are in the physical ones don't reach out, don't try to go, because like I said, it's that bruise will heal to them, but
Yes.
those words will cut you forever. So
Yes. And that is why I say don't close the door to uh therapy. I know that Black people, we're like therapy, what's that, and especially if you are Christian. Oh, I just read my Bible and pray, but sometimes you do need someone to sit down with you and to really dig out that stuff that's down there,
right,
because as you said, it goes deep, cuts deep, and it comes up, and they're triggers now you have triggers that you didn't have when you went into the relationship. You come out with those, and you can be trigger shy. In other words,
right.
you won't let anybody else in. So when did you decide that you needed to get out and you made a strategy? Did you make a
Um,
strategy, or did you just run for the hills? I mean, which way did it go?
well, what actually happened? My son's birthday was coming, and I had actually stopped dealing with his father, not because of that, but because of some other reasons.
Okay.
And against my better judgment, he says, let's go to Virginia Beach for my son's birthday. I said, okay. Once again, I stayed through what I stayed through for 2 years because I did want my son to have that complete family. I knew how it felt not to have my dad when him
Yes.
and my mom got divorced. Even though he was there, he was not there. Like, I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
physically go in the other room and talk to my father.
Right.
So I wanted my son to have the best of both of us. And I stayed and endured that because of him. So, of course, when it was a birthday, I was like, okay, come on. Um, I ended up going out of town with him, and we got a hotel room. My son was 2, he was getting ready to be 3. And I went out to the car to get something for him. He was asleep. I had laid him in the bed, and his father had went through my phone and realized that I have moved on.
On. Yes.
We're only
Mm-hmm.
doing this as a family co-parenting thing. I'm not down here to try to be with you
Right.
or nothing, but I'm gonna put our problems to the side for my son. So he goes through my phone and finds out that I have decided I want to talk and be with someone who's gonna treat me right. Long story short, that beating
Oh.
almost killed me.
Oh.
If it was not for my son being there, he
Mm.
lifted his head and looked over, as his father had me pinned down. He had his knees on my arms over my chest, so
Oh.
I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And he was choking me. I was starting to go in and out, and I looked over and I heard my son say, "Mom,"
Mm.
and he stopped. And I looked at him and I said, "I don't care what you do the rest of this weekend to me,
Mm-hmm.
but do not do it in front of him."
Yeah.
So people may judge the next phrase or statement that I'm going to make, and if so, so be it. But at that moment, it was what is it? Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when he got off of me, I took off through the hotel room door.
Mm-hmm.
I knew my son was there, but I just didn't have time. I knew he wasn't going to do anything to my son,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure what he would continue to do to me. So I took
Right.
off, and just started screaming for help. The people that were in the room next to us actually came out and saw that I was
Mm-hmm.
busted nose.
Oh.
I was leaking.
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
and I'm light. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if I
Look
bump into
terrible.
the wall,
Yes.
I'm gonna
Yes.
bruise in
Yes.
2
Yes.
seconds. I'm bruised. So I had already started
Mm.
bruising. My shirt was ripped from where he had tried to grab me going out the door, and I was bleeding. So they end up calling the police. And in that moment, no one knew, including my mother, no one, because
Mm.
I had totally swore him off. I was not going to deal with him. My son, I was not going to do it. So I didn't tell anyone that I went on this trip.
Right.
The police do come and detain him. And he knew, the police officer knew what had happened in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But I begged and begged. I said, if you arrest him, he has everything. He had took my phone, my key. So anything that was on his possession when the police came, they weren't going to give it to me,
Oh.
including my phone, the keys to the vehicle we were driving, all the money. He had took all my stuff. And when I
Oh.
ran out the room, he grabbed all my stuff.
Oh no.
And I said, if you don't let him go, how am I supposed to get home? No one knows I'm here. And
Mm.
I said, but I promise you, if you let him go, when I'm going to get in a safe space, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get away from him when I get home.
Yes.
So they let him go
Oh.
against their better judgment and
Mm,
gave
mm,
me a
mm.
number to call directly if it was to happen again.
Oh
But
boy.
God works in mysterious ways,
Yeah,
because
he
I have
does.
a great cousin that
Mm-hmm.
lives in Virginia Beach that I called.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey man, I don't know what you're doing, but I need you for the rest of this weekend. And I'll tell you when you get here. So I go get my cousin, and he stayed with me the entire weekend to ensure that I
Yes.
was safe.
Praise
Nothing
the
else
Lord.
happened. He was highly upset. He definitely
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do something about what he saw, but I begged him not to, because I didn't want to put not only his life at risk, but
Yes.
mine, because I would
Yes.
have never heard it. I never would have heard the end of it if something had happened to him.
Yes.
But I exited that Monday. He held me hostage down there until
Oh.
Monday, until he was dry. There was no money. I was refusing. I had called the bank and told them my card was stolen, even though I
Right.
had it, so he couldn't get any money. And when he took me home Monday, I prayed like I never prayed before. And I
Mm-hmm.
told God, I said, if you get me home, me and
Mm-hmm.
my son home, when I step out this car, I promise you I will never look back. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that. When I got home in the middle of June, I had on a
Wow.
sweatshirt like this because I'm bruised. And
Mm-hmm.
I had covered my face in heavy makeup because I didn't want my mom to see it. And I got out and I got on the ground and I kissed it and cried because I had
Mm.
made it home safe. I couldn't get out the car. I don't even think he stopped the car and I was out the car.
Oh.
I carried my
You
son.
got out of there.
Yeah, the whole 2 hours back home, I held my son because I was scared that if I fell asleep or let him go, I was gonna wake up and I was gonna be somewhere and didn't know what was going on. So when I
Mm.
got out, I didn't look back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough to know that if you would do that to me in front of my son,
Yeah.
I mean, you were doing it when I was pregnant, but he wasn't here. And then he ended up getting incarcerated. So I went through a lot of my pregnancy and stuff by myself. But when he came home after that is, when it started
When it
back up.
really. Yes.
Yeah, when it got worse. If
Okay.
you do that in front of my son, then I know that
Yes.
it's going to this was the top escalation.
Yes.
You were
Yes.
trying that day to take me out of this world.
Yeah.
So I know the next encounter you're going to try to succeed. So that was the exit. Him doing that to me put the exit strategy in my head that if you go back, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And if it wasn't
Exactly.
for my son, God speaking to him to say, hey son, wake up,
Yes.
I wouldn't be talking to you either, because he only stopped because my son woke up.
Right. To God be the glory. And there are so many ladies who don't make it out, you know. One of the things we were talking about before was people telling people, oh, just leave, just run, just whatever. But um, considerations have to be made, you know, all of the time of whether or not what you're getting ready to do is going to affect your children, going to affect your
Right.
other family members. You don't know, you have to know where that person is. You know, a lot of times they're on the edge. And
Right.
so praise God for the presence of mind for you to run out into the hallway and yell and let them, know that something was happening, because some women don't get that chance. So you are
No.
here for a purpose. Obviously, God has great things for you to do, girl. Woo, thank God
He
for
wasn't
that.
ready
So
for me yet.
yes, yes, he has things for you to do. Plus, you got grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles all praying for you. You're calling up your name to the Lord. So that's a good thing too. So what words of hope do you have for other women who are going through this situation? What words do you have for them? Hope, and also about not talking about what's going on, and just holding that close to them and not saying what's going on, and just, trying to find their own way without any help.
Um, let's see. Let's see how I can word it.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking back and seeing what you could have done differently so it wouldn't have gotten so far.
I feel like I should have it, trust your gut. If you feel like something isn't right, then 9 times out of 10, it is not right.
Yes.
Um, do not ignore those warning signs, the quick temper, even if it's you're having an argument and you try to walk away and he grabs you,
Mm-hmm.
do not take it as anything other than it could become worse one day.
Yes.
Um, to get through it, I quoted on my Facebook, the minute that the fear of staying doesn't outweigh the fear of it outweighs the fear of leaving, then you have become a victor. Because
Yeah.
a lot of women are scared to leave because of the consequences of what are going to happen, so they stay. So
Yeah.
when those consequences no longer matter to you,
That's
you're going
huge.
to get up and you're going to go. You have
Mm-hmm.
you have achieved victory, as you say. You are
Yes.
no longer a victim and you will be okay.
All right.
Definitely put your faith in God.
Yes.
um I grew up in a Christian home. I have heard nothing but the Bible for as long as I can remember. My son is in Christian school. But there was a time that I thought that he had abandoned me because he allowed me to go through this. Why? What did I do? Where did I
Mm-hmm.
mess up that you allowed this to happen to me? If you love me, then why are you letting someone like me go
Yes.
through this?
Yes.
Um, I had to get my relationship back right with God, and
Mm-hmm.
and forgive myself
Yes.
for thinking I was the problem the whole time when I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Every lesson is a blessing in disguise. You
Yes.
may have to go through the fire to get to that rainbow on the other side, and you may think that God has left you, but he hasn't. Sometimes he's probably tried to open your eyes before and you had them closed. So
Mm-hmm.
now he's took you through the most extreme thing to
Yes.
open them eyes, but it wasn't because he wasn't with you. It's because he wanted you to see, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I told you, I tried to show you. Now look,
Mm-hmm.
open.
Yes. Now open.
So,
Mm-hmm.
trusting again yourself. I think you have to fall back in love with yourself before you can trust someone else.
Yes.
Um,
Very good.
you have to heal
Mm-hmm.
yourself, love yourself, forgive yourself, build yourself back before you can even open yourself up to trust another man or woman, because there are
Yes.
men that go through this too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not emotionally and mentally healthy and fixed inside, you're never going to be able to open up to someone else because you always have this wall up.
Yes.
And me, I trust again because I trust myself to know what to look for now. It's not
Yes.
necessarily I trust that person, but I trust myself to know what I'm not going to put up with and to know that my gut instinct is right. I do still have certain walls up, but not
Mm-hmm.
because I don't trust. I think something is going to happen, but it's more of the fear of getting heartbroken after going, after letting those walls
Yes.
down. So those would kind of be the key things. And don't necessarily always be scared to talk to someone, because the person that you think may give you the most wrath about it will probably be the person that could have saved you from the situation or made you see something that you weren't seeing. And I have a great person that I'm sure you know very well,
Yes.
that if I had a sat down and probably really told him
Mm-hmm.
what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have had to go through all of that. But I was scared. I did
Yes.
not want that. I knew he wouldn't have judged me, but I could not see that. I was ashamed to tell that
Yes.
person that someone as beautiful and smart and, as me was going through
Yes.
that.
Exactly. And that is a real key point. It comes down to pride. We don't want to look at it that way, but our pride, in who we are, who people think we are, how we like to portray ourselves, really does get in the way sometimes from us getting the help that
It
we need.
does.
And not only that, the impacts. We always are very concerned about the impact on others. If somebody's looking up to you and then you open up to them about what's going on, what is that going to do, for their life, their impression of you, and all those things. So those are very key things. I really love that you brought out that you should never, ever, ever ignore those warning signs. And I also think, glad that you brought out about being, upset with God, because that was one of my things too. I was very upset with him. Oh my God, I did everything right. I did this, that, and he has to show you, but you're making choices and decisions every day. You're making
Yes.
these choices and these decisions every day. And so we really do need to change our choice barometer, and
Yes.
as you said, we have to never, ever, ever ignore those warning signs in the beginning. I always wanted to know what is going on. This seems like more than just anger. When that anger is, red hot and you can feel it, because I know you know what I mean. You can almost like feel it's a tangible presence. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's probably safe to say that you need to get out of there if you can. You know what I'm saying? Or you
Right.
or you need to try to get some counseling, therapy, whatever you want to do before you make the exit. But some of the things we also had to do when I was going through my situation is total when I left, total separation, like you said, and never talking to the person again. You had to come kind of get away and let that be broken. Whatever
Right.
that pull was that they had on you, that fear. It's a lot of fear going on in these relationships, and that is pretty much what control is about. They want you to be in fear all the time, and then you will not make the decisions you need to make for yourself. Well, I am so excited that you shared this story with us. I believe
Yes,
that
me too.
women everywhere will be uplifted. I mean, look at this beautiful woman. They will be uplifted. They will be, just encouraged to reassess where they are, and that's what we want them to do. Look at where you are. Don't ignore signs. Look at where you are, and then decide what is safe for you to do
Right.
to move on to the next thing. Also, there's a national hotline that you can
There
call. We
is.
will have that in the notes that you can call. It's anonymous. They won't know who you are. You can call. I wish I had known that at the time. Now,
Me
now we
too.
know, right? So I want to make sure women always know that there's that number available to you. Call the number. You know what I'm saying? Call the number and let them help you work through where you need to go next in your relationship. Thank you so much, Alicia.
You're
I am
welcome.
so excited that you shared this with us for our first The Heart of the Matter episode 1 series. So thank you so much. And we look forward to talking to you next week about verbal
Y-
abuse. All right.
Yes.
Mwah!
And I have one more key thing.
Okay.
As a friend of a person that you may think is going through something like this, whether they fight, kick, and push back and say they don't want your help,
Hmm.
do not leave them in the dark, because a person will push you away and say, "Oh, I don't need you. I don't want to talk to you." But if you continuously just be there and show them you're there and support them, it could make a change, because there are so
Yes.
many people that will push people away, and those people just will be like, "Okay, well, forget
They
it."
didn't care. Hmm.
They don't care, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean because they don't care that you can't care about their life and make sure that they are okay.
Yes. Yes.
There are plenty of women who, or and probably men, that get out of situations because their friend is the one who will take that step and call and say, "Hey, he's hitting her. Y'all need to do
Yes.
something about it."
Yes, yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. You have to love them enough to lose them as a friend. You got to love them
Yes.
enough to lose them as a friend. So if you see someone that is going through a situation, you got to love them enough to help them, even if they hate you at that moment for it. But God willing, they'll be on the earth to be able to thank you later.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
thank you so much again.
You're
I
welcome. Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me.
Yes, yes. And we look forward to talking to you some more. God
All right.
bless. And let me see. I don't know how to get out. Let's see if we can figure that out. Uh, leave and make sure you save this.
Okay, I will.
Okay. All right. Love you. See. Leave.